Last week, if you were with us, you heard me talk about the archetypes in the narrative of the Christmas story. We talked about the Divine Mother representing that which is Mary, the Divine Child being that which is the essence of purity, the Father, Joseph, which was the archetype of chivalry and support. And then there was the archetype of kingship, and how the polarity of kingship shows its ways either in a loving, ruling manner of equality or an egoic, fearful manner. And I always remind us that these stories and every element of the story, every character of the story are the characters and the elements of who we are. And so I left out one of the main characters in that story, and it is of the shepherd. And I want to give you a little context about shepherds during biblical time. It was a crucial and a necessary job. It wasn't considered, however, a noble job, and I'll tell you why. So it was very paradoxical. Sheep, lambs, were very important in the Jewish tradition. In fact, it was the lamb that was sacrificed often in their most holy of gatherings. And so to be a shepherd meant that you were connected to one of the most holy acts within the Jewish tradition, within that faith. However, the shepherds were not considered holy people themselves because they had to break one of the vows, and that was to work on the Sabbath. So it was a paradox to be a shepherd because you couldn't take the Sabbath off because the sheep had to be tended to 24/7 every single day. So it was this interesting dichotomy to be in such a valued role and yet not valued as who you are. And what an interesting space to be in, right? To be something that's a great service to one's religion, and yet that religion looking upon you as a lower caste citizen. And so when I was thinking about that, and the fact that the shepherd then in the story is probably one of the most interesting components, because it is said in the Gospel of Luke that a heavenly host of angels, so stop for a moment, that's not one angel, not a big, pretty, bright angel, but a heavenly host of angels. So that would be a multitude of angels. That's a lot of light, isn't it? Imagine if you were a shepherd guarding your flock by night. So it was a 24/7 job to be in this particular role. And you're doing your job and it's nighttime, and suddenly a heavenly host of angels. So that would be like what in today's world? Who can imagine? Las Vegas. Exactly. That's what I was looking for. Thank you. So here you are over the field, and then you cross into Las Vegas. Heavenly host of angels. Just this bright, illuminating, blinding light, and everything ceased. And it said that the shepherds were fearful because they were not accustomed to something so magnanimous. And yet when they were assured by this light, by these angels, they were the first people to be told of the coming of the birth of this child. That message wasn't given to kings. It wasn't given to important people within the court or within any other faction of that populace. But the first message of something so transformative was given to shepherds. Shepherds. Shepherds whose job was to guard the lamb. Now, when you think about the child that eventually grew up to be this masterful teacher, Jesus, he also, too, was referred to as what? The lamb. The lamb that was the way shower. And so the metaphor and the parallels of this are really fascinating, because even though they were guarding these sheep, a lot of these sheep were then used for these sacrificial offerings. And so was this child growing up to be offered as a sacrificial offering. And when you look at the parallel of this and the role of the shepherd, you see that they then are the portal by which this transformation, this purity gets brought into the world and guarded and cared for until it's time for it to make its transition. And so these shepherds, once they were given this news, traveled to the scene of this birth, and then they became the instrumental people that began to disseminate the message of this birth. So shepherds played a huge, huge part, and it continues to be one of the most iconic metaphors and symbols within the Christian teaching within biblical literature. We know that as you read through those scriptures, it says that the word shepherd and the phrasing of that, the Lord is my shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd. And that reminded me of being a child back in Beaumont, Texas, in Sunday school. And for whatever reason, I was told many, many stories in those Sunday school years, but only one story stuck. And it was this one that I'm going to tell you this morning. I don't remember all of the particulars about it, but I remember the fact that it had such an impression upon me that I went and I personalized it for myself as a young child. And my teacher told us that this was a story during the Wild West, you know, and so my mind had all kinds of, I think I had the Wild West imagery in my head, but it was of a ranch, of a mother and a father and a son, a single son that they had. And they lived in the middle of nowhere on their farm in this Western era, and there was little contact with other people. So this little boy and this family felt very isolated. All that he really had was his mother and father. Occasionally, a rare instant, there was an itinerant preacher who would come through these particular areas. They didn't even have a church per se. These families would be visited by these itinerant preachers. And so when this preacher showed up, this little boy was thrilled because it was something new. And he stayed with the family a couple of days, and he talked with them, and he ministered unto them, and he guided them, and he became a part of their family for just a few days. But he spent some time with this little boy. He noticed that the little boy was very, very shy in his demeanor, and he would look for opportunities to let the little boy talk to him. And lo and behold, one day as they were sitting during this visit on the porch, the little boy revealed to him his loneliness and his fear. And the preacher, seizing the opportunity to give him some help in a story, told him of the fact of that same scripture that I said, the Lord is my shepherd. And he goes, let me give you a tool that you can use in your loneliness. He says, hold up your hand. And so the little boy held up his hand, and he goes, how many fingers? 5. And he goes, so that sentence, the Lord is my shepherd, is exactly the number of fingers that you have on your hand. And he said to the little boy, whenever you get afraid, I want you to hold up your hand, and I want you to repeat that phrase. The Lord is my shepherd. And he goes, I want you to grab the my. And whenever you're afraid, I just want you to walk around and hold this particular finger. That finger, being the wedding band finger, is significant of connection and relationship. And so he said to the boy, whenever you're afraid, whenever you feel isolated and alone, simply grab that finger and repeat that passage over and over to yourself. And to know that by doing that you are creating this connection to that which looks over you, to this figurehead, he taught him, of Jesus, that he is truly your shepherd. And for some reason, that stuck with me. Because as a little boy, feeling quite isolated in my environment, I too had fear. And so I took that to heart. And I would walk around all the time like this, holding this finger and repeating that phrase. I don't remember the particulars of the story, but somehow then that was in the autumn, and as the preacher left and the little boy again was feeling isolated and alone, they entered into a very severe winter. And around Christmas time, when the snows were piling and the winds were blowing and the animals somehow escaped out of the barn, he went out into the cold to try to rescue those and lost his way through the blindingness of that storm. And as the parents were trying to find him and he was trying to find the parents, he remembered the words of the preacher, and he dug himself a little hole buried in that snow. And when they found him safely the next morning, he was clasping that finger. And so I remembered that. And again, like I said, I would walk around like this all the time. What we've come to understand metaphysically is that the word Lord is synonymous with the word law. Law simply tells us that whatever we are devoted to, whatever thought that we shepherd, becomes that which we experience. I'm not a shepherd and you're not the flock. Not at all. We're all shepherds. The flock is our thoughts. And what we are tending to is our thoughts on a regular basis. And so as we incorporate the dutiful aspect of being a shepherd, what we know is that the law is my shepherd. That I, in my individuated humanity, am a shepherd, but the law is also my shepherd working with me. So we're co-shepherds, we're co-collaborators in the type of experience and in the type of tending to our world and the manifestation of that world that we're responsible for. And so as we remember that, and we know that the law is my shepherd, our beautiful philosophy, which I continue to fall in love with year after year, deeper and deeper, more intricate, more personal, as I begin to understand it and implement it, is that that law, which is my shepherd, tells me that I will always be watched over, 24/7, that there is no day off, that it is a constant collaborative relationship that has my back. It's a constant collaborative relationship that has your back. And regardless of the chaos of what this human world might give to us, understand that that shepherding never ceases. So when we do become anxious, when we do feel separate and alone, what we are asked to do is to simply take that and hold that, and to know that the law is there and it's guiding me. And the only thing that it asks of me is to notice it. Notice the law. Notice the collaborative, wonderful responsibility that we have to shepherd those thoughts in such a way that we tend to our lives and therefore help reciprocate and vibrate out so that others can tend to their lives in a way that is peace-filled and harmonious and beautiful. I know you've probably heard some of this before, but let me tell you that all of the events that are happening in our world are a necessary part of the dismantling and the rebuilding of the Aquarian age of the beauty and the power of humanity. And so we are not to fear this dismantling. We are actually called to celebrate and cooperate with it. That means that when we see any kind of inhumanity towards our fellow beings, we are called to know that the Lord is our shepherd, and we go and we tend to the flock of all that is required of us through thought, word, and deed. That we are the mainstay, that we are the stability, and that we are never alone. So I want to invite you on this last Sunday of the year to remember that. To remember that you are not alone. To remember that the rug has not been pulled out from under you. That what is under your feet is a lush, verdant, beautiful, thriving opportunity to let that law begin to blossom in ways that you and I have yet to imagine or experience. That isn't just a Christmas message. That is the universal constant message that is being delivered to us 365 days of every single year. I have a particular fondness for you fellow shepherds in here because I think you understand that more than most. I think that you understand the responsibility of what being a shepherd means. I think you understand that there's not a day off in being a shepherd. That every single day we show up for duty. And we love and we care and we guide and we protect not just ourselves but one another. So I have a prediction for 2017. And that prediction is that the unraveling of sweetness, of joy expected and unexpected, of breakthroughs that you did not see coming is at hand. And the way in which we prepare for that, there is a particular news commentator, his name escapes me right now, Van Johns or something. I think he's calling it the love army. And the way in which that we prepare for the love army is to take deep breaths every day and to begin to honor ourselves because we are being called to duty, so to speak. And as we show up individually and collectively, we are going to see a world unlike anything we've ever experienced before. Don't ask me how I know this, but I can feel it. I can feel it. I think sometimes what has to happen is there is a bottoming out of anything that is lazy, of anything that is taken for granted, of anything that is felt as optional, so that we can see, we can let go of the vague, we can let go of the lazy, we can let go of business as usual, and we can prepare ourselves for this amazing Aquarian rising up that is now ours. So on this Christmas morning, I ask that you take your hand. We'll recite the traditional Christian word using Lord first. Together, the Lord is my shepherd. And now, metaphysically, with the word law, the law is my shepherd. And as you personalize the my, and you hold that, close your eyes with me. Take some deep breaths. And let's just enjoy the silence for a moment. And on this holy day, this day of birth and renewal, this day that was foretold to those shepherds, we replicate that telling today to us as shepherds, that unto us, the collective of humanity, is born on this day in 2016. A faithful knowing, a light that now transforms our world. We honor this light as it grows within the individual and the collective hearts that sit here this morning. It is the light that guides us into the mystery of what this coming year has to bring for us. But it is an unfailing light. It is a light that pulsates with assurance. It is a light that reverberates with self-forgiveness. And it is a light that knows the depth and the breadth and the height and the width and the length of all that is perfect and aligned and positioned and ready to move us into our next highest expansive calling. And so we remember this morning that we are shepherds, and that the flock of our thoughts will be tended to 24/7 in such a glorious and beautiful way. And in this moment this morning, we take any of these thoughts which have migrated into memory or experience that are weighing heavy on our hearts today, and we lay it on this altar to be transformed, to be ceremoniously dissolved, so that we allow a new space within our hearts and within our minds to be filled by that which is more true to our highest self. The law is indeed my shepherd. And if you remember what follows after that, I shall not want. So this new world, this new experience, is a world that lacks for nothing. I shall not want. We accept this gift today. This gift of remembrance and connection. That sings in our ear, that pulses in our heart, that moves through our hands and feet, and that reverberates from our tongues as we speak. Rise up, O shepherds, and let us tend our flocks today. We have within our movement what is called a chamber prayer. It is a prayer where each individual speaks out loud their prayer, and so there is a cacophony of beautiful, high vibrational sound that fills the room like a chamber of celestial voices. And on this Christmas day, on this last Sunday of the year, I invite you to join me in a chamber prayer. A prayer that comes from the heart of a shepherd that dutifully knows truth. And I invite you to speak a prayer, an affirmative prayer, which is a prayer of knowing for our world on this day. It is a prayer said for those within Aleppo and Syria. It is a prayer for those who are hungry. It is a prayer for those who feel displaced. It is a prayer for those challenged mentally through depression, feeling anxiety and separation. It is a prayer for those who have lost anyone within this year. It is a prayer for those who may lose someone in 2017. It is a prayer for the universal collective of humanity. Will you recite this prayer with me now? And I speak these words today knowing, speak it out loud with me, that there is a power and a presence within our world that sends this love, that sends this guidance, that sends this knowing to all mankind. It is a prayer of peace and of beauty and of love. It is a prayer that knows that the guidance of all that is now comforting and reverberating and upholding and lifting up all of those who are feeling isolated and alone. It is a prayer that knows. It is a prayer that sees. It is a prayer that guides. It is a prayer that reflects. And now speak out loud the names of your loved ones that you also want to know and to feel this assurance today. I speak this for Ty. I speak this for Betty. I speak this for all of our staff and associates. I speak this for each and every individual here today. And if you'll take the hand of the person seated next to you. If you'll take a moment to look at them and say, I know this prayer for you as well. On this day, December 25th, 2016, we the people of Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta, do stand forward and ready to be the shepherds, to be shepherds of light and love, of ascension consciousness, a beacon of hope, a place of trust, a mighty wave of healing power within our world. We are in this together. And as you squeeze the hand of that person next to you, say with me, and so it is. Hi, I'm David Ault, and I simply want to say thanks. Thanks for taking the time to watch our broadcast here at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. We have a vision, and that vision is to reawaken all to their spiritual magnificence. And one of the ways that we are able to do that is through this very medium of broadcasting. So if you got anything out of this, if you felt in any way inspired, or if something spoke to you directly, then I extend an invitation to you to become a part of our family by donating. And there are many ways in order for you to be able to do that. One is to simply go to our website at slca.com, and there you will find all different kinds of prompts that will help you support what it is that we are doing here in Atlanta. One way is to become a pledger. That means that you decide on a monthly basis that you are going to help us with this vision. Another way is to donate through our management system called Fellowship One, another through PayPal, and another even easier way is on your cell phone. You can do what's called text to tithe, and that number is 404-796-7030. Again, thank you so much for your support, and I invite you to come back weekly to see what it is that we're up to. Blessings.